Hi, my name is Jack Carleson, or known as Big Planes on YouTube, and this is my Saturn V moon rocket. It is a little on the large side, I will admit to that one, and it has a lot of really cool features that I wanted to bring into the model that had the real Saturn V did have, and it was very difficult to transport it here, and transporting something this large can be very difficult, and building something this large. And just the general way I built the rocket, which I did build the rocket first, was I used a central core down the center and had like spars coming off in multiple directions, sort of like sun rays would come off, and that's how the center core attached to each side of the rocket. And I started off with the first stage down here. It goes to about this line right here. And then above this line is like a skirt where the engines would be for the second stage. And then above that is the second stage. It goes to about here. This is going to get challenging because the really so tall. And above about here is the third stage that goes to the housing for the Lunar Module. And then directly above that we have the command module and launch escape tower, which is where the astronauts would get onto the capsule. And building something this large does have some challenges. Literally, I can't reach anything above about here without a ladder. So that gets sort of interesting. If you realize you forgot a part, then oh well, like we can't fit a ladder in here now. So that's one of the challenges there. And the base itself is 3 by 4 feet, if you were wondering, and is about 6 inches tall. And it uses a pattern where there's supports about every 2 of the large tiles. And after each one, it connects to a central skeleton sort of system that connects it to the main bricks that hold together the opening where the rocket is. And that was a little challenging. This actually breaks apart into 2 sections. About right where that yellow cart is where the sections break apart because it is just so large and so heavy that it needs to be transported in separate pieces. One of the things that we had trouble with actually bringing this to the convention was because this is about an inch too big to fit through the door.
Oh no!
The 3-foot doors, no, so this wouldn't fit. So we had to like run through the freight door, and they had an elevator that you had to run through it before it would close because you had to run through the freight elevator, and then you pop out doors way in the back over there. There are double doors, so that was quite challenging. There's hidden ways to get models that are larger than 3 feet wide in here, but that was a little challenging. We sat out there for 30 minutes trying to get that thing in here, but it worked out ultimately in terms of transporting it. And something this large, transporting it is also quite difficult. It does come apart in multiple stages like the real rocket did, which is quite helpful when it comes to transporting it, but it's still difficult because something this large has to be put in a box, and this right here we sort of just put in a bubble wrap and stuck it in a box. It did okay, except for it was really hard to get the engine bells on, and the second stage did pretty good. The third stage we kind of dropped on the way in, so that might contribute to it being a little challenging to put together. But yeah, another thing is this is completely minifigure scale.
Really?
About 10 feet tall, around 10 feet tall for the Saturn V, and yeah, it's quite
Was
long.
was the minifig then what drove like the size of everything? It was that scale that kind of drove how big this was?
Yeah, I wanted it to be to scale with a minifigure so we could have minifigures displayed near it, and so people could sort of find a common scale because a lot of people are familiar with minifigure scale. So I thought, well, that'd be a good large scale. And the question of why I would ever decide to do something this large is another thing that comes across a lot of people's minds, and that is, well, I wanted to build the tallest rocket that I could build in our house. And if it was just the rocket, it would not be that difficult to display since it has about a footprint of like a square foot. You could probably put it in a corner. But the base had to come along, and that's when things started to get a little challenging when it comes to building it and storing it, which is a challenge all of its own. And it took about 7 months to build this thing. Most of that was waiting for pieces because pieces take a long time to get, especially a model this large.
Yeah. And then you've also got the support tower here, so talk about how the red structure came together.
Yeah, the red structure came after the rocket. First I built the rocket to understand the size, but then the red structure, the launch tower, each one of those has a gantry that connects to the rocket itself, and that was something that I really wanted. And the real rocket has, or the Saturn V that they actually used to go to the moon, had about like 9 of those gantries. My model has around 6, so it could be more transportable. And the gantry itself is fairly symmetrical. It's built in 4 separate sections. They get stacked on top of each other. And of course, at the way top, we have the main gantry that connects to the end of the white room at the top that goes into the capsule that they would take to the moon. And it's very sketchy putting that last piece on up there. It's not easy. You're standing up there on a ladder, and I don't know why I did this. It's the heaviest part on the entire rocket. The last section has about 4 floors on it compared to 3 floors. It has the crane, it has the things that connect to the launch escape tower, and it also has the gantry with the white room in it. So it's the heaviest piece. So getting that all the way up there and sitting it and making sure that it's level. We have to use a level meter to make sure that this thing won't fall over when I put that last piece on. And once it's a go for that, I stick the antenna on the top, and we have a 10-foot model, which is quite a sticks out a lot in these conventions. Sort of, yeah. And the Lego kit is done to, I believe, 1/100th scale, and or 110, I don't know. But I want to make it similar in some ways to that. So I tried to get as many details in regards to the Lego model as I could, since that was something that a lot of people are familiar with and is a very common set that was on the Lego Ideas line. And I wanted to scale it up so people could see what a model of this size would look like in minifigure scale. There are not too many of these that have been done in minifigure scale. I believe one person in Australia made one that's like 20 feet tall, but that one I don't know if it's minifigure scale, but I wanted one that's almost exactly at minifigure scale so we could understand exactly how big the tallest rocket in the world is. So this thing really does have a massive footprint, and you can see why it was the rocket they needed to go to the moon, because it's huge, and you can understand that the command module, which is down here, which I'll sort of show you, or no, it's not the command module, the lunar module, and it's built in 2 sections. We have the descent stage right here and the ascent stage up here. They can separate like on the real thing before they would leave the lunar surface. And this particular one is actually, I'm breaking it right there. This particular one is the Apollo 15, 16, 17 lunar module. So as you can see, it has the lunar rover right here, which does fold up to fit inside of the command module. Or keep saying command module, it's lunar module. You can see that you can fold up the rover, and you have to put these small pieces in there first, and then slide this one in just like that.
Yeah,
fits
wow.
quite nicely. And then after you make sure that it's all the way in there, you can shut the door, and that's how they would get it to the moon. And a lot of people are wondering how they would get a car to the moon, and that's exactly how they would. So that sort of explains it. These were actually expanded for Apollo 15, 16, and 17. The earlier ones didn't have as much space inside of them, so they would bring other experiments with them. And the later ones were expanded to be able to fit the lunar roving vehicle. And some other small things littered around here, try to get up so you can see them, are some APU units and some people around there just sort of dealing with the pad before launch. And I tried to put some minifigures down. Like I said, I'm not super technical on exactly what everybody would be doing before launch, but I've just sort of tried to approximate what they would be doing, and I tried to put some details down. Pretty good. I mean, just some things that probably could be added, but they will be added over time. One thing that I really did like about this one is I filmed the entire build process of the rocket, so you can sort of see how many hours it took, and it took about 20 to 30 hours of building. Once you slow down the time lapse, you can understand how much time it took to build versus how long it took to build. So like 7 months of waiting and 2 days of actually building. So that's going to be a fun challenge. And then people ask how long did it take. It's sort of hard to say, but you can say pretty confidently that it did take around 20 to 30 hours. So yeah, this is definitely the tallest thing I've ever built. We can't build any taller. We have 9-foot ceilings, and this thing is 10 feet, so it's a bit of a challenge to store. So,
what do you plan to do with it when you do finish at the show here?
Well, this is going to be interesting because we got to pack up and get out of here somehow. Took like 3 days to pack it up to get here, so it's going to be real fun. But just planning to take it back, and I may eventually do like a BFR or an SLS. Hopefully they're not bigger than this, but if they are, then yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll have to be displayed on its side, but we'll just have to cross that bridge till we get to it. But this is the largest, tallest thing I've ever built, and it is, sure. Yeah.
It turned out fantastic, and I appreciate you going through all that effort of building and then also all the effort of bringing to the show here, because it's really incredible to look at this and take in all the details you included. So thanks so much for talking with us about the build here, and thanks for bringing it out.
Enjoy talking to you about it.